Hello, I'm Dennis Helms, Solution Architect for HCL Software, and I'd like to talk to you a little bit today about achieving field service excellence with AI automation. A little on our agenda, we're going to talk about the existing state of the field service industry today and basically service in general through requirements. We're going to talk about some challenges and opportunities in that area. We're going to go over a large manufacturing company case study that I think you will find really, really interesting. We're going to talk about our platform capabilities called IntelliService, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. I hope that you guys enjoy this, and I really appreciate you attending. So let's start out a little bit about FCR. So FCR is first contact resolution. So this is a KPI that our platform was designed for, and for good reason. These stats here on the screen taken by Aberdeen Group, pretty compelling, and let me kind of decipher these a little bit for you here. So most of our customers, when we first engage with them, are typically looking at an FCR of somewhere between 20 and 30%, which means that the first time they are in contact with the customer, typically at a level 1 type of help desk interaction, they're only successful in finding the resolution about 20 to 30% of the time. That's what that means. So the tipping point, however, is really more at 80%. And at the tipping point being profitability versus revenue decrease. And so for those call centers that have the capability to be profitable, that usually doesn't show up until about 80%. And then the effectiveness of that is about 6.2%, as opposed to a 2% decrease in revenue for those FCRs that are less than 80%. So it's kind of interesting that there's such a huge gap. And because there is such a huge gap, we really feel like this is an area of opportunity for a digital platform such as IntelliService. The other thing that you'll find is that other stats that are actually tracked typically within a help desk are driven some directly and some indirectly by FCR. So things like MTTR, which is mean time to resolution, CSAT scores, which is your customer satisfaction. These are all kind of a direct result of FCR, and we'll kind of take a closer look at that. So I want to talk a little bit about the service journey, kind of from the view of your customer. What does that look like, and how does that affect the loyalty based on their experience that they have? So the first step that we have, and when we talk about this, we're going to talk about it in the way that if we're polling 100 customers, 10 customers will have got their problem solved by themselves, right, at 10%. So that's kind of the context that we'll put this in. So 10 of these customers are doing customer-led problem solving. So they're going out there on the internet, they're doing their searches, they're trying to find answers. And the main problem with this is you don't know who they are, right? As a manufacturing company or a product company, service company, you don't know who they are. There's uncontrolled information out there that they're finding, and it is going to be subjective to negative social media. There's folks out there that are going to be saying, hey, this product didn't do exactly what I wanted it to do, and they're out there, bloviating on the internet about it, and potentially affecting the capability of this person to A, solve their problem, and B, stay loyal to your brand. So this is a real kind of bad place to be. And the more tech savvy the customer, the more likely they are to actually start out with this step. Second step is your L1 support. Now, however they got to your L1 support, whether that's calling your 800 number or sending an email to support@acme.com or whatever it is, they're now engaged. And this is the opportunity really for first contact resolution. The other interesting thing about that first step is it did not give really a good opportunity for first contact resolution, right, since the customer is doing it on their own. So now at the L1 support level, you've got a couple of problems that exist as well. Limited problem-solving capability. So we're talking about a junior resource here. We're talking about someone who, even despite the constant training that they're going through, there's a high turnover. They end up moving up to potentially L2 or L3, or just going to another service organization or something along those lines. And most of the folks that are staffing L1 support are doing repeatable type of issues. They're talking off scripts, right? And they're, the most productive thing they may do in a complicated ticket is just gathering the ticket information and then forwarding it on. That's obviously a frustration to your customer too, to get forwarded on all the time from person to person. And I would even argue that after you forward it on once or twice, it's no longer a first contact anymore. So that's another impact as well. The real bad part here, though, is only 8% are getting solved at this step. So 8 out of 100 customers are actually getting a solution out of L1. And what's really bad about this is that this represents L1 is probably one of your cheapest options. And it's also one of the early options that would get your customer kind of out of this path or off this path with their problem solved sooner rather than later, which is going to keep their CSAT score up. The fact that this is only 8% is pretty disappointing. When we forward it on to L2, L3 support, some of the issues that arise there are that we've got a very large and specialized workforce that are highly siloed. And the reason why that is because this is where the seniority is. This is where folks are dealing with the deepest issues of your product line. And if you have a large product line, you have a lot of people because they become, specialists, obviously, right? When they walk out or they leave or they retire or, they win the lottery, that knowledge is walking out with them, because disseminating that knowledge, capturing that knowledge is very, very tough. Most companies try to tackle that with training, and it's effective to an extent, but training ties up both the senior resource and the junior resource during that period of time, and that's a non-productive time to try to do that knowledge transfer. And then the next day, some of the knowledge changes, and then the training is no longer valid again. The other thing, too, is that I think L2 and L3 support would be a lot higher than 12% if they were like on-site with the customer and they could see what the customer sees. They're trying to ask the customer, hey, describe this issue to me, go through and try this thing. Did it work? Did you do it exactly how I said to do it? Very, very tough to manage that with your hands kind of tied behind your back. And then finally, the SLA targets are so high, they're so aggressive because we're all trying to do more with less. We're all trying to beat the restraint requirements that are out there in the workforce today. And because of that, documentation suffers. So the documentation tends to be a bit of a shorthand scribble. And for people to actually go through, pull up an existing ticket and look at it and see anything meaningful that they could actually use for an issue that they have that's like that one, very, very tough to do. Very, very tough to do. So that brings us to our field service truck roll number 1. And when I say number 1, you guessed it, there's a number 2 coming. But field service truck roll number 1 is mostly diagnosis escalations, and that's really coming from the L2, L3 support, because they can't see the product, and at some point they're like, okay, Mr. Customer, I don't want to put you through this anymore, trying to go through and manipulate whatever this product is in order for me to try to help you. So I'm just going to send someone out. It's going to be easier on both of us. And so they send out the diagnosis truck roll. Well, what we found is about a good solid 50% of the time that, when they do diagnose the actual issue, the parts to fix it, they're not on the truck because they didn't know what the problem was before they rolled out. And so now that's where the second truck roll comes in, and we've also got a wait on parts ordering. When we've scheduled this maybe a week out, they've come, they've done the diagnosis. Now we've got to schedule 2 weeks out or 3 weeks out because we're waiting on parts. In the meantime, the customer's product is down this whole time. The frustration's going up. Their CSAT score's going down. You kind of get where we're going with this, right? The other thing is that this is probably your equivalent of L2, L3 support. This is your equivalent expensive senior techs that are going out and doing the diagnosis. They're the ones that are doing the troubleshooting because they've seen a lot more potentially than the junior resources. So when you get into trying to maintain a national brand and using subcontractors, you can really get into a frustrating experience here because those folks may not have the seniority, the experience, and managing multiple subcontractors and trying to keep quality the same across all of them is very, very tough, especially when you get into the second field service truck roll. So if I went and I diagnosed it with some of my best folks, maybe then I'm okay with just going and doing the repair with a more junior resource. But that more junior resource can run into issues and then re-impact someone who's out on a diagnosis escalation somewhere else on the second time around. So this can be frustrating too. I mentioned parts availability and these kind of instructional gaps, but this overall lack of quality can even result in a truck roll 3 or 4, right, if it wasn't fixed right the first time, or you have one of your senior field service agents have to go back to fix something that a junior agent did not do well. So I'm sure everybody's been here. You understand this pain. And then finally, we get sometimes, and this does happen, about 10% unresolved issues, right? So this is the customer that is like, you know what, I had a bad experience with this brand last time. I'm not going to do it again. I'm not going to go and I'm not going to engage again. Or they just kind of refuse. They're staunch in doing their own problem solving, and will never call a 1-800 number. I know a couple of those people, and no matter what you do, you're never going to get them to engage. But this is tough because they're the ones who are putting out that same social media brand damage that the first person is reading, right? And when there's an issue that's unresolved and they go to have to buy that product or replace that product later on down the road, almost 100% chance that you've got loyalty loss here and they're not going to rebuy that product. So this is a real big issue. Overall, you can see at the bottom, the farther we go to the right, your costs increase, the customer satisfaction decreases. Overall, just a really bad place to be. Let's talk a little bit about this large printer manufacturer case study that I promised we would go over and see how it aligns with what we just previously went over in terms of the typical service organization. So you can see here we're looking at about 30,000 calls per month. Their on-site escalation is up around 60%. The bulk of their resources is really concentrated in the L1 and L2 support team, about 200. The L3 support team, which is, like I said, where that knowledge investment is in their senior resources, is sitting at about 40. And the field support team is sitting about 40. So they had lots of knowledge sources. Their typical, mean time to repair was really, really through the roof. Ineffective call triage, and their field visits were really kind of unproductive overall in terms of, trying to get that only one truck roll. It would end up being, multiple truck rolls because, again, they have so many products, they had so many parts that having that part on the truck just almost impossible to predict and to do. So about 6 months after adoption, I want to kind of draw your attention to this purple chart here. That was their MTTR. So you can see a little uptick, probably learning curve, and then it falls through the floor. Okay, this is their mean time to resolve. And you can see on the right-hand side, there's about 32.5 minutes, I think, at the end. This is an actual screenshot of our reporting out of the tool. So this isn't doctor in any way, kind of just, this is literally drawn right out of the tool and shown to you. This is what their charts show. The other things that are nice too here at the bottom that we didn't blow up and show is the customer call deflection immediately was about 15% out of the gate, which meant there were basically 15% of the calls that they didn't even have to deal with because they were dealt with by the platform and never even actually got transferred to a call or transferred to a chat with a live person. 14% of the staff was able to be upskilled, which was really nice because 200, you saw that their L1 was really, really high. L1, L2, and L3 was really low. They were able to actually go through and train and repurpose and upskill 14% of their staff, which is really, really amazing. That was a huge, huge boon. I pretty much paid for the product, quite honestly. And then their mean time to resolve obviously dropped to 25% right out of the gate. But here's the really important part. Let's look at how FCR affected these numbers. So these numbers are probably what most companies are using. Let's see what FCR was doing here. So their initial FCR was under 20%, and I don't even know that they were really aware of that at the beginning. once we talked it through with them, they felt like, well, you know what, if we got a greater than 40% target FCR out of this, wow, we'll really be doing good. We will really be doing good. But we don't think we can get there. Quite honestly, we feel like that's, when we kept telling them, well, let's kind of push that number a little bit. And so when it was all said and done, 6 months after adoption, they're sitting at 65% achieved FCR, which is really just kind of blowing out of the water that target, and really kind of exceeded their expectations, which I thought was pretty amazing. This number is only going to go up over time. This is a platform that learns over time. This is a platform that gets better over time. The more knowledge you put into it, obviously, the easier it is to use and the more effective it is. And so this number is going to continue to creep up over time and hopefully get them over to that 80% that we're always targeting. I really want to point out this quote to you. I found it interesting as I was reading it because 2 words just jumped right out at me. So the word first and the last line, the word resolution, right? So first resolution is pretty much it's the F and the R in FCR, right? And it's really just a really cool quote, enabled our first line customer service representatives with literally no technical knowledge, right? To definitively diagnose customer service issues. Definitively, not in question. That means with a high degree of confidence, they were able to diagnose customer service issues and resolution. And I'm going to show you how. So let's talk a little bit about the platform. All right, so the platform is called IntelliService by HCL. It's an AI service optimization platform, and what that really means is that it really is built from the ground up for the service industry. Now, the service industry can be any kind of service. It can be TSM, it can be product support, it can be services that are marketed as products that also need support. It could actually be something completely different. It can be helping a purchasing department manage high volumes of POs. It can be used in the regulatory industry for complaint management for medical device companies. It could be used in a lot of different places, and quite honestly, it is used in all of those places that I mentioned. But in general, what really kind of creates this common theme are the components that we have over on the right-hand side, and I'll go over those in a second. IntelliService really sits kind of in the center of your organization. It's deployed very, very strategically in containers, so it could be deployed in public cloud, on-premise, or private cloud. It also connects to enterprise systems such as your CRM system, your ticketing system, pretty much any system that it needs to in order to pull data forward in order to build that AI model and keep that AI model fresh. It also connects to all of your knowledge repositories and also logs and alerts. That goes also for telemetry data as well. So if they've got telemetry data from IoT devices, we can pull that in and work from there. As you can see on the left-hand side with all the bubbles hovering over the customer there, these are the different channels that we engage on, right? We have chat, we have email, which is quite an interesting channel there because surprisingly enough, a lot of organizations that we speak to, many of the tickets are created through automated connection from email, from people sending email at, like I said, support@acme.com or whatnot. And we're able to actually proactively react to those, by the way, by watching tickets that get created that could potentially be solved by the conversational AI at the very beginning. We can capture those, intercept those, assign the ticket to the conversational AI, send an email back to the customer with a link for them to engage the conversational AI and get their problem solved and get that call completely deflected. Web is another channel, phone. We also have the on-site technician, the remote technician. They're also plugged in to the platform as well because this really does affect everybody positively. So these components on the right-hand side, I mentioned conversational AI a couple times. This is really kind of the first line of defense. This is what we can drop into a mobile application. We can drop into on a web page. We can drop it pretty much wherever it needs to go. It can be on WhatsApp. It could be on Teams. And the conversational AI is quite intelligent because it's not just a normal conversational AI that you may see out there, kind of the chatbot that's baked into every product nowadays. But this actually leverages intelligent triage. I'm going to skip to that one for a minute. That one's the orange one there, third one down. Intelligent triage is an AI model that takes past data, builds a relationship between symptom, root cause, and resolution, and based on symptoms that you feed it, is able to output a resolution at a high confidence level. More importantly, it's able to actually generate questions to be asked in a very, very efficient manner to arrive at that resolution as quickly as possible. So let's apply that to the conversational AI that does use that component, and now you've got an unscripted conversational AI that can ask questions of the client that the client can answer, and then basically come up with a resolution. If for whatever reason it doesn't reach a high enough confidence level, well, it can automatically intelligently route to an agent at that point to say, hey, the agent will take it from here. But there's a high probability that, given a good data set, that this thing is going to be able to actually solve a lot of problems up front. And if the customer can solve those issues, can implement the solution of those issues, let's say, then you end up with 100% call deflection, which is really awesome. Cognitive search is another one. Cognitive search is really kind of prevalent throughout the platform. We'll talk a little bit more about it here because I'm going to go in depth in each one of these. I mentioned the telemetry and predictive analytics, and that's really where the data input comes from. It's building the model behind the scenes for this and intelligent triage. AR/VR, which is augmented reality, virtual reality, very, very helpful in these cases, and we're going to see how we can use this to basically take that agent that had their hands tied behind their back and not able to see what the customer was seeing and having them try different things, to them being able to really have a very prescribed way of having the customer interact with stuff. It's I like to call it a UC or IC with UC kind of capability, which is really, really impactful. And then this whole thing is built on a low-code, no-code platform, which makes expandability and customization really very, very easy. So I talked a little bit about the conversational AI, the guided experience, really kind of it's never off duty. That's the biggest thing. That's why most people started adopting conversational AI, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, because they don't have a customer service center that's up 24/7. So this AI would take over when their service center was closed. But it can do so much more now. And the really important thing, and I really kind of went over a lot of these things with you already, but the really important thing is the ability to intelligently escalate and route workflows. So we're using this to capture the customer experience really, really early. Okay, we're trying to give the customer guidance and capable help to keep them from having to go out and try to search for it on their own. Because going to a website and searching the website, you may not get an immediate response. So then you expand out and search Google or whatever. But if there's a chatbot right there to be able to help, a lot of people start to engage that, and as the experiences get better and better, they engage it more and more. Being able to, like I said, embed intelligent triage in the chatbot is a real game changer. And then we talk a little bit about intelligent triage, and this you can see this kind of animation going here on how it makes the best available recommendations through this feedback loop and this learning capability. We also show on the right-hand side the screen in the agent cockpit for intelligent triage. This is what your agent sees, and they go through, and as they answer these questions, they can see the list of resolutions that the AI is possibly considering and what those confidence levels are going to be like on the right-hand side. And they can make a decision, based on those confidence levels. Hey, this is the one that seems to be the best one, and then get the ultimate resolution kind of beyond that as to what to do and how to fix it and how to take the customer to the next steps. So this really is very, very pivotal and really a cornerstone of our product is this intelligent triage capability. The other thing that it does really well is it identifies and potentially can order in a conversational AI situation parts that are part of that resolution, part of that fix. So that's a big deal as well. This obviously enables us to make sure those parts are on the truck or get those parts to the customer in a customer self-fix situation. Cognitive search is another one. Like I said, this one is really kind of prolific throughout the environment. This is what's going to be able to go and pull information from all these knowledge sources. It is a lot faster than your typical search capability in terms of finding relevant information. It provides that single pane of view across all your disparate sources, much like the old enterprise search concept did, but in terms of service. It's also very context sensitive as well. So it can actually be configured to where it narrows down the search as you go through and narrow down the questions on intelligent triage. It can actually go through and narrow down the search to only those that are applicable. So when you're done, you've got a set of knowledge-based articles and things like that that can be easily referred to based on the actual recommendation of what the issue is. It supports multiple file documents, multiple storage locations, cloud storage locations, all the things that you would expect from a really robust cognitive search capability. So augmented reality is really, like I said, pivotal a few minutes ago when I said, I brought up the comment about this being leveraged with your agents to be able to kind of see what the customer sees and I see what you see functionality. It's really, really kind of cool because there's no software needed on the client's device. They can simply send a link to the customer that says, "Hey, will you join this session?" Either through text or email. They click the link and join it, and then the customer's phone then builds what we call a point cloud around the area that their phone is showing, and it identifies 3D objects and 3D surfaces automatically. And that allows the agents on the agent side to be able to literally draw on the surfaces, and it stays with it in perspective. So as you turn the camera around, the annotations all stay right on the surfaces in augmented reality, and so they can notate, hey, move this or flip this switch, or you should be looking in this area, or remove that panel, or remove this screw and that screw, but not the other one. It really allows them to kind of look over the shoulder of the customer as they're figuring things out. It has a really, really cool effect on stats as well. So if you look at like some of the remote solve on Office products, faster time to diagnosis, an overall increase in remote solve sessions. This is directly increasing the capability of your L2 and L3 to actually solve in a remote session rather than escalate. This is that number that we were talking about earlier. That's a huge increase, an absolute huge increase. And then finally, we've got telemetry and predictive analytics. So on the left-hand side here, you've got these data sources, and these are all the data sources that are used to kind of be combined to then build into the predictive analytics model, the intelligent triage model, and the telemetry that's pulled in. So this is proactive identification of issues is a big capability here. We're really able to turbocharge intelligent triage too, which is nice. So we can, if we've got, let's say, we see a refrigerator shown here. Let's say that part of the telemetry is the temperature of that refrigerator. One of the questions that triage might have pulled up might be, is the temperature of the freezer within recommended boundaries? Yes or no? Well, I don't need to ask the customer that, or have the agent ask the customer that if I've already got telemetry data. So now I can just skip that question. I can automatically answer it as yes or no, depending upon what the reading is, and go on to the next question. So it makes everything more efficient, quicker, buys those minutes back into the process that keeps your CSAT scores up. And finally, the low-code, no-code platform. I'm just going to wrap this one up by saying, hey, we're HCL, and we've got 200,000 employees, and building this on a low-code, no-code platform and having such a large workforce capable of doing customizations, we can make this product fit your organization like a glove and get all of the things out of it that you're looking for, interact with all the systems that you currently have in place. That's the reason why we built it the way that we built it. It helps you manage technical debt easily. The innovations, changing things, trying things becomes just so much easier. Putting them back is easy if you don't like the change that you made. So really and truthfully, this is really a feature, in my opinion, that is worth calling out, which is why we put it in here. So let's take a look at how this picture has changed. So before we had, customer going out and doing kind of self-solve. Now we've got a conversational AI that's available 24/7. We're calling this level 0, right, which happens before your level 1. And this could be deployed via mobile app support, however, you want to deploy it. But this, basically, the point of this is to capture customer engagement early and enable tech-savvy customers to engage with a platform that they feel is as competent as they are. So overall, we've seen about a 15% out-of-the-box capability here, which is a 5% increase in terms of this first step. What it really gets dramatic, though, is the L1 support, right? So the L1 support through the agent cockpit, which is your single pane of glass, providing intelligent triage, which makes every agent as good as your best agent, and having efficient escalation. Let me talk about that for just a second, because I didn't really touch on that too much. This efficient escalation is intelligent escalation from the conversational AI to L1 support, or it could skip literally right over L1 and go to L2. If the AI determines that this escalation is too difficult, is kind of a unicorn case, and can identify a person who has a good track record resolving this kind of issue on this kind of product. So it's multifaceted as to how it will pick how to escalate the call or the chat. And that's really important, because it's not just availability anymore, first available person. It's really trying to get them to the best person to, again, shorten that experience overall, get them helped as soon as possible, get a solution as soon as possible. So this was 8%, right? This is what we're seeing in the industry now, is a 22% increase to 30%. This is massive. This is absolutely a massive increase. And it doesn't stop there. The L2 turns into what we call L2 virtual field service. Well, why is it L2 virtual field service? Okay, let's talk about that for a minute. The primary use case here, they still have access to intelligent triage, but they've also got access to the AR/VR capability, right? So this allows for them to be able to actually see what the customer sees, to stop escalating to truck roll just for diagnosis, okay? But it also allows them, as you'll see in a second, when we do have to make a truck roll, and there's those times that we do, and in order to maintain warranty, have it repaired by a certified technician, or disassemble something beyond the customer's capability or tools to do so, we need to send out that truck roll. That's fine, we can do that. But if we're using a subcontractor or we're using a junior resource, you can literally have the L2 virtual field service be able to look over their shoulder as well with that tool, with the AR/VR. And they can provide on-the-spot training. They can provide just that helping hand that says, second pair of eyes. They can even do visual inspections, and that's a whole new use case that is kind of interesting there. With visual inspections, you can guarantee that the quality is being maintained and that something is fixed the first time to avoid further truck rolls. And that's got to be attractive. If there's a quote-unquote runaway problem with truck rolls, not to have any pun intended there, but in any case, this has increased by 8% to 20%. I think the numbers before, like I said, were 10, 8, and 12, which would be about 30% total in the previous iteration of this. 30%. So only 30% of calls were dealt with, issues were dealt with in the first 3 steps. Now look at these numbers. We're dealing with now 65%. It's over double. That is a massive increase. Now we have field service truck roll, but you notice there's not a number 1 there. And the reason for that, we've done away with the second field service truck roll for the most part. There might be those really, really unique instances where we've got a systemic issue with the product or whatever, and multiple replacements are needed or something like that. And we've all but done away with unresolved issues as well. So we've eliminated 2 steps. And the field service truck roll, like I said, we've got intelligent parts identification now to make sure the parts are on the truck when it goes out. We've got the remote training and inspection that I mentioned a minute ago with the AR/VR capability. We also do automated video and image documentation. So now that we've got the AR capability, we might want to equip our field service truck roll, our field service agents that are going out there and doing the truck rolls with, virtual reality glasses that has a camera and a microphone on it. Well, not only does that allow for this, remote training and inspection, but it also automatically captures everything that they're doing and documents that within the ticket. So now, guess what? Way back at L1 support, these guys are able to see what was done in field service. You see how the information is getting disseminated while they're just doing their jobs, and they're not having to go through and do special training and all the things that are normally used to try to keep that precious information from just walking away from the company that's been identified. Pretty big deal, pretty big deal. Hopefully this is impactful and you guys can see the value in this. And speaking of value, we have a little saying within our group here that we provide ROI on day one, not one day. And what we mean by that is really kind of the way we bring this to market. We're highly customizable, which is a huge deal, and I already kind of touched on that a little bit. But one of the things that we go after right away is these SLAs, and FCR is obviously a big one that I mentioned. We'll look at all the SLAs that you're looking at in order to understand where you are and where you want to be. But then when we provide the pricing to you, we provide the pricing based on the SLAs. So we'll call it value-based, or some call it outcome-based pricing. And what this basically means is that for every dollar you save, we take so many pennies off of that. And you're happy to pay us those so many pennies because you've saved a lot more pennies. You've saved the dollar, right? So it's a good problem to have, to be able, as your bill potentially could grow larger with HCL, you're saving more on the front end. It's a good problem to have. And likewise, if you are not hitting those numbers that we've said, hey, we're going to gain these amount of efficiencies and it's SLA driven, then you're not paying anything. So that's why ROI is on day one. When you start paying money, you're getting value, and not one day. So this is literally, quite literally, the statement is true. So I just wanted to kind of point that out. To me, it's a really innovative way to bring a really innovative product to a market that really needs something like this. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here. We do have some resources that you can access, including a free business value assessment through this QR code. You can also reach out at ask.intelliservice@hcl.com as well. And if you have any questions for me to follow up on this, I'm going to open up to questions right now. But if you're watching this, after the fact, after the live webinar, then feel free to send me questions via this email address as well, and I will be more than happy to get back with you. I really, really appreciate you guys coming out and sharing your day with me, and hopefully you've learned something today, and if not, well, let me answer your question for you, and hopefully you'll learn something here at the end. So we asked a Q&A discussion. We kind of asked, what challenges are you facing to drive field service excellence today? And you can see we can kind of just leave this word cloud up here while we answer some questions. So if there are any questions, I'll take them now. If you guys have any questions, just type up with them, or you can also type them in the question Q&A window on the right-hand side. All right, I got a question here. It says, I already have a support ticket and a warranty system. Awesome. Will the solution complement both? Yes, absolutely. We can integrate with both of those systems. In fact, I'll say this: we do not act as a source of record. So we're not there to replace your ticketing system, not there to replace your CRM or your warranty system. In fact, we're using that to pull historical data to build our AI model from. So those are integral, I would say. In fact, almost a requirement in some cases, at least the ticketing system anyway, to be able to take full advantage of our platform. So good question. Good question. All right, got another question. Can we leverage our company data as part of the business assessment? Absolutely. So, yeah, if we're going to do a business assessment, that's actually what we usually ask for. Is 90 days, maybe 6 months worth of existing data. Because what we do, we realize obviously installing this in your environment is, we do security and all that, risk and assessments and all those types of things as well. And sometimes that can be a process. So we have our own cloud-hosted models. You can give us scrub data. We can plop that into our model, and then you can take the system for a test drive with your data in it. It'll be just the data that you gave us, but it'll still be useful to be able to actually see, how it works and what it looks like. All right, got another question. Can IntelliService be implemented on an existing field service management? If so, what kind of complexities on integration side can we expect? So yes, it can. I'm assuming an existing field service management platform. So maybe something like ServiceNow or ServicePower or something like that, I'm assuming is what you're asking. So yes, definitely. And we would use it as a existing source of data, as well as an integration. So if you've got, let's say, scheduling in that, we can integrate with the scheduler, and let's say as an output from the conversational AI, there needs to be an appointment scheduled. Then we can actually act as the front end on the conversational AI to go through and schedule appointments through the schedule. So that's an example of an integration. In terms of complexities, I don't see any major complexities as long as the field service management platform has APIs to be able to do the things that you're wanting to integrate. Then it is no issue at all. And we have connectors for pretty much all the majors that are out there. And if you have something that's a little bit obscure and isn't necessarily one of the larger players, as long as it has an API, we can actually put that connector together in typically about a week. So hopefully that answers your question. Are all data formats supported for business assessments? For the most part, yes. We'll definitely be able to kind of give you an example of what data we're hoping for, and we realize, obviously, that depending upon the system that you're using, the data can be stored in different formats. It can be, XML, it can be CSV, it can have all various fields. We have a field mapper, so the number of fields, as long as the data is roughly there, isn't too much of a deal breaker. So, like I said, we've got the field mapper there that can do the translation into our data lake. But we can pretty much convert any format to any other format anyway. So probably not an issue, I would say, unless it's something really obscure, and we'll just make sure that we work through that with you. Not an issue. These are really good questions, guys. I really appreciate the participation. Okay, I see another question. How long does the solution take to implement on average after the assessment? That's a really good question. So typically we're looking at about anywhere from 30 to 90 days to get everything up and running. And that really, honestly, I see the 90 days happening when the organization has a real high security review constraint. I've seen security reviews themselves take 60 to 90 days. So if you've got a 60 to 90 day security review and you know who you are, then just tack this onto the end of that. But for the most part, we can get up and running within 30 to 90 days without a problem. You get all the initial data pulled in, get the models trained and tweaked, get all of the fields mapped. That's the majority of the work that goes into it. And then we'll go through and we'll run an initial baseline to see what the efficiency increases are, and we'll baseline those. And then based on the data that went in, we'll get a good idea of how that baseline will increase over the next, let's say, 6 months to a year, and we'll be able to give you those numbers as well. So hopefully that answers that question. Any more questions? Feel free. Don't be shy. All right. Well, if we don't have any more questions, I guess we will wrap it up. If you have one, get it in there quick. But I just, again, wanted to thank you guys for attending this. I know your time is very valuable, and we respect that. So hopefully you learned something today, and I really appreciate you participating. Thank you so much.